Timmins, Ontario's very own Shania Twain. Hi, Shania. How are you?
Hi, I love it. I love that my introduction was Timmins, Ontario's Shania Twain. That's awesome.
How have you been doing? I mean, have you been paying attention to the level of attention this documentary is getting? It feels like everyone's talking about it.
Everyone is, and it's surprising. I wasn't expecting such an overwhelming, response. I'm pleased about it, and it was nice watching it back. I really enjoyed hearing other people speak about their perception of things too. That was very interesting.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Like it's amazing to think back then, and like even just like I love in the parts of the documentary where there was just so much more music around you. Like your parents were playing music in the car. There was a lot of music being played around the house at home. And I think from an early age, it's clear how much you connected with music, right?
I guess almost like like a sixth sense for me. I was obsessed with music, with sound. Didn't even matter what genre. I was obsessed with instruments and harmony and music arrangements. It's all I wanted to do is just play music. And, you know, whether it was the radio or a cassette or a record, or a live thing or, on television. And then I started playing guitar at 8 years old. So then I became obsessed with, um, accompanying myself. And then songwriting came from the age of 10 years old. And then that was opened up my world enormously as far as what the possibilities were, uh, in every way. So yeah, I often say music is my life. It's been my life.
You are from a small town. You're from Timmins, sort of an industrial town. Dolly's from a small kind of country town. She achieves this massive success. And you look at her example and you go, maybe I can do that too.
And more literally than I even explained or, in the documentary that anyone explained, but I'll explain to you now is, my aunts and my grandmother would, sew a lot of my stage outfits because, I mean, we couldn't afford to buy it. So like Dolly, when she talks about her mother making this coat for her, I related so directly to that as a child. And, most of our winter clothes were secondhand. Um, and we would get, I was a little embarrassed about it. And I could tell the other kids were judging me for that. And so I felt like she was singing my story. And it gave me, I thought, well, if she's just takes it so well. She takes it with such grace. And and I knew that she was writing from her heart. Dolly is the person that writes from her heart. And then the unique voice that she had. I'm like, wow, no one sings like Dolly Parton. Uh, it's so unique and original. And then she was a guitar player, a singer-songwriter. So yeah, and her whole persona, she's her own world when it comes to fashion and aesthetics and presentation. So yeah, Dolly's, every little girl's perfect example of what is possible when you come from nothing.
Your mom really believes in you too, and she really wants you to make it in the music industry, and she really believes in you as a singer. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit about this, the story you tell that, in the nights after your dad would go to sleep, your mom would sneak you out into the bars, and you would do gigs, hoping that you would get home before your dad woke up.
You know, take your child in the car to a bar just to sing after midnight when she has school the next day for what my dad probably thought was no reason at all. Like, I mean, as if who's going to discover her in Timmins, Ontario in the local bar after midnight, right? Which yeah, I mean, I can see his point. But my mother was really obsessed. She thought there was no other way to expose me. Felt she at least had to get me out in front of people and get me developing experience with a live audience and with my performing. And so she took that risk that maybe somebody would give us money at the bar, would give us $20 or, $50. Sometimes they did, and sometimes they didn't, And so when they didn't, the gas money was gone, and now we're in trouble. We get home to a very angry bear.
And there's such a responsibility, I feel, even then, like you talk about it in the documentary a little bit, like a responsibility to try and make it.
Because there was so much sacrifice in our house. A lot of times, and I do see this with young athletes or anyone that needs the support of a family and a community in order to develop. Everyone else has to sacrifice so much, and that was really the case in a lot of times with us. We didn't have anything anyway, but whatever we had was often sacrificed, and it was all about me, the little singer, getting me exposure, getting me to maybe get scouted or discovered. Some miracle would happen. I think both my parents were hoping some miracle would happen. Some manager would see me and have a wow moment. We were hoping for a miracle, really, my parents. So this puts seeing the hope in them and the sacrifice that everybody made me feel it became a burden. And I didn't love being on stage. I loved to sing and I loved writing songs, but I was petrified of being on stage, and I had to do it. I had to do it because I couldn't let everybody down.
So it's clear to me that the responsibility of making it is only heightened when you lose your parents. Your parents die in this horrible accident, and your parents die in this horrible accident, and you become the caregiver to your younger siblings.
That's a very, very good point. To be honest, when my parents died, I felt more responsible, overriding my career now became my kids, my siblings, who were still all teenagers. And I had to be there for them. And I was going to, at that point, I'm thinking, well, I guess that's gone now.
Yeah. Oh.
That's something I'll do for fun. And I got to get a real job. It's like time to get a real job and get serious. But by this time, all of my other friends have been already in college for 2 years, and I've got no other skills outside of being a musician, songwriter, performer. So Mary Bailey,
yeah,
one of our Canadian artists as well, says to me, she's a good friend at this point by now, and she says, don't quit. There is a job, a singing job, performing job that I think might pay enough for you to be able to stay in the field and still take care of your family. But you'll have to move. So I dragged the kids to Huntsville, Ontario, after auditioning for the job, and I get the job. And it does pay well. It pays, I don't even remember what it paid, but it paid well enough that I could I could get a loan for a house and pay a mortgage and keep the kids with me and not have to separate them.
It's such a tremendous responsibility, but at the same time, this tremendous responsibility coupled with like pretty prodigious abilities, like your ability to sing, your ability to perform, your ability to write songs. These things, you're operating at such a high level, yet living in Huntsville. You go down to Nashville for the first time. Is there any sense when you get there, because the early Nashville part is in the documentary, do you have any sense when you get there that like, hey, I'm as good as anybody here?
I wasn't seeing myself as a competitor in any way. My confidence was more in my conviction to succeed. I was dedicated. There was no choice. There's no going back. What am I going back to? I've got no parents. Um, no one in my family has money still. I'm the only, I mean, I can't, I have to make the most of all of this life sacrifice to this point in making it, succeeding. So more than anything, it was perseverance and desperation. And it wasn't just this, competitive. I didn't have the luxury of thinking that way, you know, whether I was better or not. I knew I was going to work harder than anybody if that's what it took. And also by the time I got to Nashville, I had already felt like I climbed so many bigger mountains
Yeah.
in my life.
Yeah, good point. Right. You had already been through a death of both of your parents. You had already been through poverty. Like, you'd been through it.
I'm like, this mountain is actually not as big as the ones I've already climbed.
Wow.
I can do this. So it wasn't I can do this because I'm so great. I can do this because this is actually not that terrifying. I've been through worse. I've been through bigger challenges and I was ready for it. I was like, bring it on. Like, okay.
That's beautiful. The first record comes out, does okay, but you don't have a lot of control over it. You can tell you're not delighted with it. You do the second record, it has gigantic hits on it like this one.
Whose bed have your boots been under? And whose heart did you see? I wonder. This time did it feel like thunder, baby? And who did you run?
Kidding me? I can't even believe that song exists. It's so good. Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under from The Woman in Me? My guest is Shania Twain, by the way, which has blown my mind. Talk to me about this, because it's around this time, and I don't want to talk about this as much as you want to. Around this time, you sort of meet the Lennon to your McCartney, the Jagger to your, I guess the Richards to your Jagger. When you meet Mutt Lange, who would go on to be your romantic partner, but the creative partnership I find really interesting here. So like he just calls you. Like I still can't get over that. He just called you to say like, hey, I know I made a bunch of AC/DC records, but I've also loved country music and I want to like what a phone call to get.
Well, we have to back up because I didn't know who he was at the time. It was really more, I love country music. Steel guitar is my favorite instrument. Are you a songwriter, by the way? I'd love to, talk about working together. I said, yes, definitely I'm a songwriter. So he said, well, could you sing me something like right now? And I'm like, okay. So I pick up my guitar and I just prop the phone up on the pillow and I just sing some things.
What do you sing? Do you remember what you sing?
I think I sang, one of the songs I sang for him was No One Needs to Know.
Unreal.
Probably sang some of Any Man of Mine because those were songs that were in my arsenal as I was trying to get a record deal. And then and I remember very clearly, like you played Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under. That was a hit. I was 30. That was my first hit. And I was 30. So even that makes me think, wow, I mean, I was kind of old to just be making it, in any international market. So, but that was also a song that I'd written. All of these were songs that I'd started writing in my cabin. I had a little 12 by 12 cabin.
In Tennessee?
In the bush. No, outside of Timmins.
You started writing like Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under in Ontario?
Exactly. So all of these songs, all three of those songs were songs that I was writing for my new album that I never got to write, never got to put on my first album. So
And Any Man of Mine was written in Ontario?
yeah,
Get out of here.
Under Any Man of Mine, No One Needs to Know. There's quite a few songs, and of course, when I got with Mutt, he starts, we become co-writers. Now we're collaborating on these songs, but these are things that I would have been singing to him on the phone at the time. And so it's funny. Early Nashville just didn't hear the potential in the songs, and Mutt did.
When you get a hit record, Shania, it's clear that things change pretty quickly. All of a sudden, not having any control starts to go away a little bit because you have success.
You can have a great artist, but it does take a great producer and the director and that producer to see it, to go, wow, that's a great idea. Wow, that's strong, and lead you in your strengths. And my early Nashville, music, the ears there just didn't hear that, and they didn't hear that I had something worth exploring and that I didn't need to, abandon my own writing direction.
Up until this point, Shania, you have control over every single thing in your life, from your time in Timmins that control has led to you becoming the biggest music star in the world. And then you're on the up tour and you lose control for the first time. I thought about it in that context when I was watching the documentary. You start to realize that, you should tell the story. You start to realize that your voice is not what it used to be. Things are changing. You start to realize that there's something wrong, right?
Yes. Now I'm starting to lose projection, like power. It's just going. I'm perplexed. I don't know what's going on. I think it's fatigue. I'm thinking everything. I'm going through every possibility. I see countless specialists. But yes, I'm losing control of something that is it's like losing an arm or something. So the neurologist discovered that the nerve damage was there. But then the next question from him was, here's a list of things that would cause this nerve damage. Can you check any of them off? And Lyme's disease is on that list. So he said, oh, well, if I would have known that sooner, you would have saved yourself a lot of suffering in not knowing what the cause of this was. Because it wasn't my vocal cords. My vocal cords were great. And they're still great. So no one examining my vocal cords would ever have ever suspected nerve damage to the cord. So okay, now there's a diagnosis, and now there's what do we do about it? And thankfully, there was a surgeon that recommended the neurologist in the first place to probe the nerves. So I have open throat surgery, and they go through the larynx, open up your larynx, and they insert what I call crutches. They're little Gore-Tex supports, and that support puts pressure on the muscles to compensate for the atrophy in the nerves. And that gave me my voice back. It's a miracle. I can't even believe it. I can't even believe that the technology exists. I'm so grateful.
I'm struck by something you said when I asked you about going to Nashville, and I said, were you intimidated and all this other stuff? And you said, I had already climbed such high mountains between my parents dying, growing up in poverty, having to make it, that the mountains I had to climb in Nashville to become a pop star or a country star didn't seem so high. But the mountains don't stop, Shania. There's, losing your voice. There's going through a unbelievably public split with your husband and co-writer Mutt, which is covered in the press in an incredibly public way. There's coming back and making the record that I first met you on, and the big Swinging with My Eyes Closed single, and writing your own songs and taking control. There's going back on tour. There's singing with Lionel Richie. There's so many mountains you had to climb over and over and over and over again. When you look back at your life, as you are able to do now through this documentary, do you learn something about how you managed to keep climbing that maybe you didn't know before?
Yes, absolutely. My determination has built over my life to not allow fear to stand in my way. So I think a lot of people think that my determination to succeed as an artist is really why I made it. But if you ask me personally, I really believe that it's been my determination to not be stopped by fear, by the climb, by the pain. It's that determination that really keeps me going. So it's very hard to throw me off. It's very hard if you're standing in my way and my intentions are good, I will move you. And that could mean a mountain.
It is so great to hear that from you. It's so great to hear the difference between a determination to succeed and the determination to not let fear stop you. I've never really heard that articulated before, but there's a big difference there. And that kind of explains a lot,
It really does.
Shania, I learned a lot about you from watching the documentary and from getting the chance to talk to you. But I'll tell you, the main one is you're tough as nails. You are, boy. You are. You've been through it, and you mean so much to so many people, including to so many people here listening in Canada, especially to people listening in Canada who, you represent a lot to them in that same way Dolly Parton represented a lot to you. Thank you so much for making the time for us, and congrats on everything.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Shania Twain was my guest from Timmins, Ontario. Shania Twain, Not Just a Girl, is out on Netflix now.